Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will embark tomorrow on a visit to France and Slovakia, a trip which will also include participating in the G7 summit in France. Well, India has been invited as a partner country by France, which holds the 2026 G7 presidency, and this will be India's 13th participation at the G7 summit and Prime Minister Modi's 7th consecutive participation at the summit. PM Modi could also meet U.S. President Donald Trump on the sidelines of the G7 summit. And if the talks materialize, it would mark the first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders in more than a year, coming against a backdrop of renewed strategic engagement, trade negotiations, and evolving geopolitical dynamics. Well, the two leaders last met in February 2025 when PM Modi traveled to the U.S. The G7 summit comes amid the war in West Asia and disruption in global energy supplies. The geopolitical conflict is likely to feature on top of summit's agenda. Trump has repeatedly criticized his European allies for not complementing U.S. efforts in the war against Iran. And it also comes amid a strain in U.S.-India bilateral ties, prompting India to deepen its engagement with Europe. Well, India and the European Union have accelerated efforts to strengthen cooperation across sectors ranging from trade and technology to artificial intelligence. Now, on the sidelines of the G7 summit, PM Modi will also hold bilateral talks with French President Emmanuel Macron. The two leaders are expected to review the India-France Special Global Strategic Partnership and jointly inaugurate Bharat Innovates, an initiative showcasing startups and venture capital ecosystems from India, France, and other countries as part of India-France Year of Innovation. All right, to give us more details on this, our assistant editor for Foreign Affairs, Sidhan Sibil, is joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you so much, Sidhan, for joining us. If you could just tell us about this particular summit and, of course, with the backdrop of West Asia conflict, and what are we expecting from this bilateral meets that are going to take place?
Well, it is a week-long visit to Europe with focus on several things. The Indian Prime Minister begins his visit from southern part of France in Nice, where he will be taking part in Bharat Innovates announcement, where of course several Indian companies are participating. There will be a bilateral as well. He travels to Slovakia, then he comes back again to France, to Evian, where he will be taking part in the G7 summit. Now, when it comes to G7, India has been regular invitee. The Indian Prime Minister has been regularly invited to the summit since 2019, when it was the French presidency, and back then as well, the French side decided to invite the Indian side. And since then, Indian Prime Minister has been present in all G7 meetings. We know that on the sidelines of the G7, expect several bilateral meetings, including with the US President Donald Trump. If that meeting materializes, and so far it looks like that is going to happen, it will be the first meeting between the two leaders since February of last year, when the Indian Prime Minister had traveled to Washington, D.C., and also since the May conflict, where we saw US President Donald Trump claiming his role in bringing peace, something that was dismissed by the Indian side, by New Delhi. He ends his visit from Paris, where he meets the diaspora and also participates in the big startup summit, which is the biggest in Europe. So it's a packed visit, but clearly a strong emphasis on strategic partnership, the global special strategic partnership with France and with Slovakia as well. In fact, this is the first ever visit of an Indian Prime Minister to that country, and since the country's independence in early 1990s. And with Slovakia, the big focus will be not only the diaspora connect, but also in terms of the auto connect. In fact, Slovakia is a country which produces maximum number of commercial vehicles per capita in whole of Europe.
All right, Sidhan, that's a lot of details, of course, coming in. We'll have to keep track of that, and we'll have you do that for us. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and giving all the information.